I was going to ask you about this confrontation with the human sciences that is going on at the moment. Only a few weeks ago, Ayatollah Khomeini, the supreme leader of Iran, attacked the universities of having too many students in this subject, and also basically the subject is contrary to Islamic teaching. Why do you think this is it? I mean, has there been any precedent in any other Islamic country attacking human sciences like that?
Well, throughout the Muslim world, which has the highest density of dictatorships remaining on the face of the earth, the human sciences, broadly speaking, are under threat permanently. And that is because they encourage a cosmopolitan, a worldly teaching and reflection on subjects to do with society and government. It could be, one could argue, that an Islamic human science could be developed. But I think this would not be consistent with the Quran or the Hadith. And I think that it's, in effect, a call for censorship, for the narrowing of minds, for actually nationalizing, let's be frank, nationalizing the human sciences, as if there could be the teaching of human sciences that serve the state, serve the principle of Velayat al-Faqih. This, I think, would, if ever carried through, I happen to think it's not viable as a call, as a policy, but if it were carried through, it would extinguish political imagination, it would extinguish new social policy thinking, new economic...
Yeah, but at the same time, Professor, you give a lot of credit to Islamic teachings and Islamic scholars for supporting democracy and all that, like Farabi, for example. And do you think that Islam basically is inherently a democratic religion, or very much compatible with democracy?
I wouldn't say inherently, but in this new history of democracy called The Life and Death of Democracy, I do something which others did an attempt before, which is to say that actually in the earliest historical phase of democracy, the birth of assembly democracy, the world of Islam, the first 4 centuries of Islam, contributed a great deal to the question of how power publicly can be controlled. If you think about it, the fact that early Islam was opposed to monarchy, that there was a permanent controversy about how to share power. There was no necessary taste for concentrated power. The importance of law, the importance of the mosque, the importance of Jami' Madani, can be all seen in these early centuries of Islam. And what I try to do in my research is to remind Orientalists, to remind scholars and others in the West, but also Muslims themselves, that actually there is this rich, deep, old tradition from which much can be learned.
What are you suggesting? Is basically, are you saying that because of this tradition or history of Islam with democracy, you don't need to import democracy from Western countries or Western ideology in that respect, that you have it already? Or you're just stating this as a matter of history?
No, my idea is it's not an antiquarianism, and it's and my thinking is not a call for Muslims just to close their eyes and to say, well, we already know how to govern, and that somehow intrinsically we are democratic. No, the idea is that if democracy is to happen in Iran, a form of constitutional power sharing with a civil society, with free, fair, clean elections, for a start, if that is to happen, then this will have to be in a Persian way. There will have to be and there is already going on, some kind of indigenization of democracy. That means that there will be democracy with Persian characteristics. And undoubtedly, much can be learned from the tradition of Islam in matters of justice, in matters of concepts of freedom, in practices for power sharing.
Yeah.
This is my idea. It is
I mean,
going on, in fact.
I asked that question because many Iranian scholars have more or less the same opinion. Basically, they are referring to people like Bayhaqi, for example, people like Avicenna and Razi. And they're saying that these intellectuals at the time, they actually discussed all these concepts, and we have all that. And based on that one, basically, the society can develop its own democracy. But the counter-argument is that these people were intellectuals who were ahead of their time.
Yes.
But society wasn't ready for that.
Yes. Well, I think in the 21st century, the political and intellectual task for Democrats, small d Democrats, is not a blind recovery of tradition. It is being guided by traditions to think about 21st century problems and how to solve these problems. What I think is remarkable about these events in Iran as we speak is that many of them, as in '79, but now in different directions, many of them are cutting edge. There are new things going on in the Muslim world, and I think Iran sets the pace. The call for constitutional power sharing, very important. The call for the protection of free associations, journalism, a Jama'i Madani, a civil society. The absorption, remarkable absorption of the internet, new communication media into, for example, the so-called Green Movement. The insistence that actually religiosity, the belief in God, is a matter not for political direction. That indeed the principle of Veliyat Faqih is exhausted because, in effect, it represents the politicization of a spiritual principle. The fact that large numbers of Iranians in recent weeks and months have been courageous enough to gather in public and to use the words Allah Akbar is itself, I think, a symbol of this. So there are these novelties that are going on, and I think they point in the direction of a new understanding of democracy, which is the least worst form of government, Churchill's words, for reasons different than Churchill thought. If you want to run an employment policy, develop and operate an employment policy, if you want to try to eliminate poverty, if you want to develop your transportation system, if you want to run a world-class university system, Iran has the potential for all of this.
Yeah.
Then you need openness, accountability, responsibility of those who lead. That is a new justification for democracy. That without it, mistakes, stupidity, folly, hubris, violence can easily